Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Tuesday, the 9th of April, comes to you from London. And just a note, reminder that I'm speaking at the Society of Technical Analysts tonight, 6:30. The presentation starts. I'll put a link below in the comments on this video so you can register if you want to log on and be part of that seminar. We've got well over 100 people already. So it promises to be quite a good session, about an hour long. I have been away a bit for the last a couple of weeks with Easter and things, but coming back to the markets, I've been watching the markets all the time, of course, but charts today, lots has happened since the last charts today. And we see here, I'm first of all just looking at gold. This was the target that was given in October. We've had this pullback, and then we've moved to a new high. And so that's really quite key there. We see we're nearly at the target. So really quite interesting. This is the daily chart and the 60-minute chart. And of course, if we look at the long-term weekly chart, we see we've got very big upside targets there for gold. So really no big surprises there. A lot of people saying it's overbought. Well, it might be overbought in terms of the short term, but the reality is it's heading to the target. So that's really quite key as well. Now we'll look through main markets, and then at the end we will cover what's going on in energy. German power made a new multi-week high last night, so that's really something to behold as well. So we'll come back to energy at the end, but looking now, we'll just go through the list, and we see here that the dollar has really, we're waiting for this breakout. Short term, we've got this risk. If we make new lows, we will see a pullback in the dollar, because there's been a lot on interest rate expectations in the US with these stronger than expected farm payrolls. Sterling, we've just activated an upside target to 128.90 on the short term, and we have activated to 142. So sterling looking quite interesting there. And Bitcoin has been quite a lot of interest of late. This sort of pullback, and a lot of people saying, oh, it's all over. But again, the targets are there for Bitcoin. We've got this big upside target, and again, we've got the target here on the short term as well. So really quite key there. And for the reality is we are pulling back. We're building this sort of consolidation pattern, but we do have these targets. Watch your short-term chart for new targets. And of course, if you're trading Bitcoin very short-term, take a look at the 1 minute, 5 minute, and 10 minute chart targets. They're going to be really interesting as well. Looking at the Nasdaq, we have seen a little bit of a just starting to diverge a little bit from the target there on the Nasdaq, but we see here we're really waiting for new targets to be activated. And we'll take a look at some of the main stocks on the Nasdaq in a minute, but really quite key there. And if we look at the S&P future, fairly flat this morning. We do have a downside target there off that sell-off that we saw last week, and so that's really quite key there as well. So certainly one to watch. Looking at the FTSE future in the UK, that's looking a little bit happier. It's not much change this morning, but we are heading to this target. So really quite interesting there. But again, we had the sell-off in markets generally. We looked at the DAX in Germany, heading to the big upside target, but again, that sell-off that we saw last week, projecting a downside target. So the short term is bearish, the medium term is bullish. Notice how we nearly met the target. That target, you can pretty much say, is as good as met. Something I'll be talking about tonight in my presentation. When do you know when the target is met? But that's pretty much now the target that's been done, and this is the target that we're looking to now. So really quite key there. Taking a look at some of the other markets, India still looking very strong on the upside there on the composite and the SS. This is the Chinese market, sorry, upside target there, but really flattening, mixed picture there. Looking at the Sensex, down very slightly overnight, but a great upside targets there on the daily chart. And if we look at the long-term chart on the Sensex, really big upside targets there as well. We're just following that trajectory, so really can't ignore that picture. Aussie market was up just overnight, and we see here a mixed picture again, short term, so that's quite key, and the medium term picture we are seeing there as well. And if we look And some of the soft commodities, of course, we've had things like cocoa going completely crazy. We look at here at coffee, lots of upside targets there, just really pushing higher. Wheat has had a lot of downside targets on the longer term chart, but we're now just seeing the short term kicking in there, so really quite interesting. And of course, silver, in line with gold, has looked very strong indeed. Notice how that target was given to 28.69, given back at 23.50, so really quite key there, in line with gold. So we are just seeing those targets being met. US 10-year yields, this has been an interesting one as well, following to targets there, looking really pushing towards that 484, so really quite strong there. Apple, this has been a pretty big concern actually, seeing the downside targets there on the short term, following this downside target to 153, so really not a great picture there for Apple. Below the cloud on the daily, below the cloud on the 60-minute, just watching for new multi-month lows there, so really significant. Of course, you can look at all the other charts there. Tesla's been another one that's been pretty concerning, just waiting to see whether we activate this new orange downside target. That will turn red with a new low. Now, looking at the energy mix, we see here we've got Brent crude, first of all, and oil has been really strong, in line with the targets that we talked about in previous sessions. We're pushing all the way to $100. We're now above $90. It's really significant. We went out as neutral this morning because we just had a bit of a mixed picture in our morning call, but that is still the backdrop. Of course, it is bullish. And US nat gas actually turning bullish today as well. So that's been quite key with this downside potential still there on the daily, but these upside targets kicking in on the 60-minute. So for today, looking pretty good. And of course, you can always go to the 1-minute chart and you just watch for the new targets coming on there. So that's really quite key. Taking a look at coal, coal is definitely in a new rising phase. Got this upside target on the daily, much higher. Notice the targets on the 60-minute chart, that one given and met. New ones here. Do have a little downside target, but we're above the cloud, really pushing for these targets. So really quite key. Very strong day for carbon yesterday, and we've got these upside targets here again, pushing higher. New upside target on the 60-minute chart, taking us to a new multi-month high. So really significant there. If you're trading carbon, you want to be watching these 1-minute charts. Notice the targets given at the end of yesterday. This one kicked in again this morning, really quite key. The 10-minute chart, we're just waiting for this one to activate, so that will be interesting as well. And so you really want to be looking at that when you're looking at all the charts. If you're trading carbon, you want to be looking at the different time frames. You looking at TTF, European gas, we see here we're waiting for this upside target to activate on the daily. That's going to be really significant. Not so clear on the 60-minute chart. We're just waiting for new targets, and again we're just really waiting for these targets to kick in today. So it's been a bit of a harder read, but it is pretty bullish after yesterday's rise. And of course, we make a new high, we activate a target into the high 30s. So that we just can't ignore that. Watch for that target being activated. The same is true of MBP. We look at front month MBP. We see here we've got these targets really just pushing towards out of the cloud there. Again, waiting for one there on the 60-minute. On the 1-minute charts, this is where if you're trading, we're just watching and waiting for this target to turn orange. Do have these downside targets, but for the moment, with that backdrop, we are watching for that upside target. Now, as I mentioned, German power making new multi-month high yesterday, so really significant there. The upside targets have been in place all through the recent months there. We've got 1 to 89.30. That was given back at 78. So it was a big target at the time. Hard to believe then, but now it's starting to look more possible. And again, if we look at the 10-minute chart, we see here we've got upside target now just kicking in just literally the last few minutes. So that's really quite key. Now, remember to sign up for the Society of Technical Analysts talk tonight, 6:30 London time. I'll see you then. I'll be explaining a lot more about the targets. I hope to see you there. Bye for now.